Hello and welcome. Joining me today is the lovely Summer Rose of First National Bank, Alaska. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here today.
I love any chance I get to spend time with you and learn from you, so thank you.
Me as well.
So you have a few years of experience under your belt. Tell us about that.
Yep, I started in the mortgage industry in 2001, so I've just hit 22 years altogether. So,
Nice.
yep.
All right, cool. And you said you were military background of some sort too?
I was raised as a military brat. Both of my parents were Air Force, so all over the United States on military bases. My son's father, when I was married to him, we were in the Army for 9 years, and so did a lot of deployments together, done a lot of base housing, volunteering, military, VA home loan classes, things like that.
All right. So I asked that, it was one of the things I noticed on your bio, which was awesome, by the way, that I work with a lot of military folks. So I thought that would be good for people to know about you.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is super important is pre-qualification. What does that mean from like a mortgage standpoint?
Absolutely. So that is the first step in getting started to buy a home. You will end up applying online. There's no longer a paper application, and we collect your documentation. If you're a first-time home buyer, we collect 3 years, but 2 years tax returns, W-2s, and pay stubs. We review your credit, your income, and your assets, and your buying power. So we look and see what a comfortable payment is for you. We look at how much money you have available for a down payment and closing cost, and then come up with a purchase price, and that would become their buying power. Okay. And we issue a pre-qualification letter with that price on it, and then you can start shopping.
All right, so now that process is a little bit different than I've had some buyers come to me where they've been pre-qualified through some online source.
I have heard about the online sources where you can just plug and chug and get a pre-approval letter, but they don't look at the documentation, which is very important and can cause problems later when people are excited to move and packing up their things. We want to take a look at all of the items to make sure if you're self-employed, that we see a profit and loss for this year, that we take a look at maybe large deposits in that bank statement with that large balance, whereas they don't quite do that online, and it can cause problems in underwriting, and that's when things can get messy.
And it can also cause problems in presenting a strong offer. So I work with buyers and sellers, and a seller is going to have multiple, offers to look at. If you have like some lame company backing you up, it doesn't look as strong of an offer to me. And,
Yes.
When I'm advising a seller, so having a local lender that actually goes through all of the steps helps strengthen the offer too.
I would agree that local is better, yeah. And especially, I work at First National Bank Alaska here in Eagle River, and we do local processing, local underwriting, and local closing. So knowing that somebody here that you can pick up the phone and talk to anytime you need to is very important, because we understand that home buying process is stressful.
That's happened a few times for us, right? And I greatly appreciate having that, greatly appreciate it. All right, well, let's see here. You answered that, check. You answered that, check. How does the pre-qualification help buyers understand what they can afford for a home or what their budget is?
Absolutely. So not only do we go into the purchase price range that they think that they may need, but we break that down into a payment to make sure that that monthly payment is comfortable for them. Because as we all know, as values go up over the years, once you own your home, your payment can also rise over the years with taxes and insurance going up. But also looking at the cash to close. There's a lot of sources you can get your cash to close, be it pulling a loan or withdrawal off of a 401k. Gift funds are available as long as it's a family member and they follow the gift fund source. But having that understanding, because I've had a lot of customers that look at a price range because it fits their needs as far as the home, but they're about $15,000-$30,000 short for that particular transaction.
That's never fun.
No, so we want to see what we can do to exhaust all options as to where everything can come into play so that they can get into the home that's going to best fit their family's needs.
And they're financially comfortable with.
Absolutely. Comfort zone is important, not just what you can qualify for. Some people can qualify for a lot more on paper than what they're comfortable paying.
I'm so glad you said that, because that happens almost every single time.
True.
As far as from the realtor perspective, having a buyer be pre-qualified, so we're going into a house that they are pre-qualified for. So if they do like it, they can write an offer immediately, which is always good.
Time is of the essence.
Especially in this market, right?
Yep.
They have their local lender, so that's a strength for the offer. But then also, I know that we're not wasting our time looking at a house that they can't afford.
Absolutely.
Or we're looking at a house that is under budget and they just are like nervous, about what they can afford. They just know immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So pre-qualification, do it. That's our PSA.
Do it
for the
early
day.
as well so that you can make sure that you're ready when you go looking, because once you go looking, you're going to find something that you love and you're going to want to move quickly.
And I will tell you, whether you're working with me or another realtor or licensee, going and looking at houses, I would strongly caution against it, because you may go there and if you're not pre-qualified, you may not have the time to, put in an offer, or, so it could be a waste of your time.
Absolutely.
So-
You want to make sure you're ready in this market. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're talking about pre-qualification. The credit score, does that affect pre-qualification too, right?
Absolutely. So the first thing, once we pull the application, is we pull credit, and we pull a hard pull tri-merge, meaning all three bureaus, and we take, it's a hard score pull. We take the middle of those three credit scores. 620 is kind of our minimum credit score. It's also Alaska Housing's minimum credit score to get into one of their home loans. As an approved lender, we do a lot of those, especially first-time home buyer. Credit is also something that you may want to take a look at ahead of time. If you've never checked your credit, right now the government, per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, every consumer has the right to know what is on their credit. You want to make sure that something didn't pop up on there that maybe you weren't aware of, be it a small medical bill or a parking ticket that you could easily take care of.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
then
like something I would have.
3 or 4 weeks later, once it's updated, when we pull your credit, we're not having to then help you go fix your credit. You can kind of take a look at it ahead of time.
I like that.
Yeah, and be a little bit more in the know. I wouldn't recommend Credit Karma, things like that. I've had many people come to me and I'll pull their score and say, wonderful, you've got a 730 credit score. And they'll say, no, I just checked it on Credit Karma, I'm at an 830. Well, that's a very soft pull. And in fact, because they're free and backed by credit card companies that want you to open credit cards, that's where that whole thing comes in.
All right, so the next thing would be navigating the mortgage application process. Let's say after your offer's been accepted, we're like, yay, we're pending. Then what happens?
So the moment that the offer is accepted, and we even get one signature on it, and it's the seller's signature, once it's fully signed, we'd love to have a copy, but as soon as it's available, we need a copy, because we know that you guys have times and dates that are listed in that contract that we need to adhere to as a lender, be it to order the appraisal, make sure that title is open so that we can go look for that title report, the time is for the buyer to inspect the home so that we're kind of aware when the appraisal process is going to happen. But then we take that contract and we send out the initial disclosures, of course.
Somebody isn't having a good ride right through Eagle River right now. That's okay.
So we take that contract and we set up the file in the computer so that we can send out initial disclosures. And that has the loan estimate. Previously it was called the good faith estimate. Now it's called the loan estimate. And that has kind of your basic fees on it as in relation to that particular property, be it property taxes that we've looked up, purchase price, the down payment we've discussed, and it really sets the tone for what it is you're going to need as a monthly payment breakdown, as your closing cost, your total cash to close. When I get that contract, I know what the seller is paying for and I know what the buyer is paying for. So it really helps solidify how much that buyer needs to be prepared to write the check for in the end.
I think this also speaks to the fact of how important it is to have a local lender and a lender that is responsive, because you know, when those things are happening and you have questions, sometimes if you have, the company that I used, we won't say any names, it was impossible to get a hold of anyone because it was a national company. And then I was passed to the next person, and then once they were finished, I was passed to the next person. And I just felt like I was constantly trying to figure out which is part of the process I was in.
Right.
So I do love that, like, you're so available for your clients and to explain the process. And I'm always available to help explain the process too. But you know, you're the expert. The other piece of that, where there's like the appraisal and the different timeline stuff, I am so thankful to have a lender that I can like work through that process with. Like, I feel like we're a partnership.
Absolutely.
In that.
Yes, yes, because we know that if that time frame isn't being met, that you're ready to make that extension, you're already in the know. And if we communicate together about where I'm at with the file, where you're at with the home and any inspections or repairs, we can constantly communicate, and then it makes addendums that much easier.
Yeah.
We don't lose any contract dates, we stay in contract, and we get those addendums to keep everything rolling so that we can make it to the closing table.
Yep. And then I feel like we also need like a title person, like a little title person here, because it's really the lender, the realtor, and title that are kind of like
A team.
choreographing this. And I will say that the lender and title has a way more detail to their work than what I do. And it's really, I enjoy watching them process each thing. And then you guys are working together, and I'm kind of like looking and checking in on what you guys are doing. And then, you know, there's just, so it's nice. It's good to have a good team.
Absolutely.
Lender, title, realtor, all the
Makes
things.
it all work. Yep, absolutely.
All right. And also the other agent as well. Like on the other side. So if I'm the listing agent, the buyer's agent. If I'm the buyer's agent, the listing agent.
Absolutely.
We are all.
The moment I get that contract, I send out an introduction email to both the listing and the buyer's agent to let them know, hey, I've received your contract, I've set the file up, here's where I'm at with dates, here's what I can see maybe is missing. For example, if we have an FHA contract and there's an addendum that should come with that, I can just follow up right away up front and say, hey, I need this up front, and that way you guys kind of set the tone of where we're at, and we can use that email to communicate with each other all throughout the way.
Yep.
And keep everybody updated.
The long chain of emails.
Yep, yep.
Oh, it gets the job done though, right?
It does, whatever gets you to closing.
Yep. Is there anything that a buyer should do to just keep the process going smoothly, or is there anything that they can do that might slow the process down or could be not great for the process as well?
That's a great question, and we try to set the expectations up front, though we understand when the buyer is in contract, they get excited, and they'll lose track of some of the details that we talked about up front. But
Yeah,
of course,
true.
communication is key. Many times we've had where if a borrower needs to change their financial situation, it happens. We advise against it because we have pre-qualified you based upon your current financial situation. Although I've had customers call and say, my car died, I have to go buy a new car. And so as long as you're communicating with us, we take a look at your report, make sure that we can fit that in, and then let you know what you can do, and then collect that documentation as soon as you buy that car. So it's the constant communication and being able to collect things immediately so that even when there's hiccups, we don't feel them, we just process them.
Well, I know a lot of times buyers are like, oh, I need to get new furniture for my property or my new house. They're not going to say property. That's me. But, you know, oh, I need new furniture, or, you know, or they, you know, need to buy a new car. And it's always like, wait as long as wait until we're closed,
That's
right?
why I love explaining my upfront disclosures in person, because there is a form that says don't change your financial situation for that reason. If you go open up new cards, honestly, that can
Right.
bring your score down, even if you don't use them. Opening up a new account or closing a current account can affect your score. We do actually pull a soft credit report right before we fund the loan to make sure that the buyer did not change their situation. And we see some changes, credit card balances up and down, but it's really the major things that somebody may do and not communicate to their lender that can cause a major hiccup in the loan processing.
And you guys do that just to be mean, right?
We do that because it's an investor requirement to make sure that you didn't change your financial situation or go finance a car or put all your furniture on your credit card
Yeah.
right before you close. Because what our job is to confirm you have the ability to pay.
Yep.
And your ability to pay is based upon your debt to income ratio. And if you are now financing your furniture and it's $500 extra a month, that could be $500 in a monthly payment they no longer can qualify for.
Yep.
Especially if we've got them at their max range. So communication is key.
And how terrible would it be if you get that far in the transaction and because you know, overspent or changed your financial situation, you no longer qualify for it.
Absolutely.
So we do not want that. So
Correct.
I know you're always letting your people know. I'm letting them know on my side too.
Yeah.
I just had one, she's like, I need to buy a new refrigerator, a new washer and dryer. And I was like, if you could just wait on
Yes.
that, just real quick, or talk to your lender.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. I feel like we've already covered. Are there any steps that an individual can take to stay informed about changes in, like, let's say the interest rate or the, like, lending in general, like, as they're getting ready to, possibly, move forward with buying a.
Well, that's hard in itself with regards to loan programs because programs change all the time and we don't expect the average homeowner or home buyer to understand that. For example, currently the HUD 184 program that normally has a low monthly mortgage insurance has no monthly mortgage insurance right now.
We should
It
probably talk
is-
about that at some point
it
because I need
is-
more information.
The package that just went through with the government, I think it was one of the Biden's financial restructure, directly affected the HUD 184 loan in trying to get more people into homes. And they reduced the mortgage insurance, which was fairly low to begin with, to zero. And so I've got two HUD 184 loans, which is specific to Alaska Natives or lower 48 nationally recognized Native American tribes, of which they have a membership number. But it offers a low 2.25 down. It's a great specialty program, but things like that, we don't expect your average person to know.
Right.
Interest rates are a little different. I mean, right now we all know rates are kind of as high as they've been in a while. The good news about Alaska housing interest rates that we quote is their rates are available on their website daily, and it's the same rate all day. And you could actually sign up as a buyer for receiving those interest rates every morning.
And that was Alaska Housing's Finance Corporation?
It is ahfc.org. And there's a home choice class. It's a free class that is
It's really good.
It is a great class. They bring in experts from the industry to talk to the buyers about the process from beginning to end. I've been there a few times as the lender over the years, but it also offers a certificate for that buyer that if they are utilizing an Alaska Housing loan, they can get up to $250 off of their commitment fee for the Alaska Housing loan.
Nice.
Which-
And those are closing costs, right?
Yes.
Commitment fee.
The commitment
it counts
fee.
towards your closing costs.
It
so
does,
you
and
just
those
saved
are
you
now good for
$250.
3 years. They used to only be good for 2 years, and
I
they
didn't
just
know
updated
that.
that to 3 years. So those are kinds of things we don't expect your average home buyer to follow, which is why we follow those things very closely, so that we can offer what's best and available to your buyer.
And that's why it's good to build a relationship with a lender for a buyer, but also for me, because I didn't realize about the HUD 184. And I'm like within 100 feet of someone that would love to know that information, like just down the street.
Absolutely.
So,
And
that's
all land in
exciting.
Alaska counts for HUD 24 products. They can do that program anywhere. Whereas in the lower 48, there's only sections of the country that's available to do that financing. In Alaska, the entire state is available.
Ooh, okay, cool. When we were talking about that, I was thinking of something else to talk about. Well,
Was it off of interest rates? Because
Well-
I kind of went there.
interest rates, that's always the thing. Like people say, well, what's the interest rate? What are interest rates at right now? And they change and they all the time, but I want to say it's like around 7% right now. I don't know. I know that you can't really quote that. Like it's kind of individual based on their credit and stuff like that too, right?
When we get the general phone call, what is your interest rate today? That is a very broad question. It depends. Are you buying or are you refinancing? Are you buying an investment property or a primary residence?
Right.
Are you putting a good amount down or are you putting as minimal down as possible? Are we going Alaska Housing or are we going to go with a conventional Fannie Mae loan?
I know what I was going to say about Alaska Housing Finance
Yes.
Corporation. So another great thing about a local lender is they have access to those loans. You don't have that with the bigger like national
The
companies that are
.com
just
companies,
the .com
correct,
companies.
yep. And even some of the local companies, you have to, Alaska Housing has on their website a list of approved lenders. And so you can check their website to see who is doing Alaska Housing loans. You have to be an approved lender to utilize Alaska Housing loans.
And at that ahfc.org, they have a list of their different loans that they
do.
have too.
Yep. And usually the most popular is when somebody says, I'm a first-time home buyer. There's not really a general loan product that is specific to a first-time home buyer except Alaska Housing. Alaska Housing offers 2 first home products for interest rates. And the great news is a first-time home buyer means that you haven't owned a home in 3 years. So you could have owned a home 5 years ago, sold it 4 years ago, and been renting ever since, and you are now a first-time home buyer again.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
Yay.
so it's not what everybody thinks it is. And they have 2 interest rates for that. One, you have to fall within income limits. I believe the other day that rate was at 6.5. And
Oh.
if you don't fall within those low income limits, which they're pretty good income limits, the rate was at 6.875. So they have 2 first home products, an income limit and a non-income limit.
So I thought of another thing about interest rates. You are so good at jogging my memory and listening to you. First of all, they're higher than they've been in a while. We're not getting free
Currently,
money anymore.
yes.
So one of the things that I feel like buyers are being a little bit pickier about what they're purchasing because they may not have money to put down towards like as many repairs or expenses and things like that. But one of the things I'm also telling buyers is, should those interest rates come down,
Absolutely.
it's going to be a feeding frenzy.
As it was a few years ago when I was getting everybody that I put into 6 and 6.5 interest rates into 3.5 when they came down that low for the 2021 calendar years is when they were that low. It was mid 2022 that they started coming up, and honestly, they have not stopped. We're kind of at our peak right now. We're all waiting to hear from the Fed what he's going to do for the next couple of months.
I'm waiting to.
A few of us have kind of hoped he would slow it down before the end of the year, although a lot of economists now are thinking that it's going to be more of spring, first quarter of 24.
Well, I just kind of paint the picture of you could be a buyer now, which we have less buyers in the marketplace, at least in my experience of what I've seen, and they're being a little bit pickier. But you could be in your house living, got the fire going, the kids are playing, or whatever you got going on. You're in your house at your, let's say, 7% interest rate, and then they drop, and then you can refinance
You can
it.
always refinance. And a really great thing about Alaska Housing loans, and if we add an Alaska Housing loan, it actually is automatically streamlinable in the future without an appraisal.
Oh,
So
that's a savings.
That
'cause
is.
Appraisals cost money.
Yep, so that first-time home buyer that may be locking in at 6.875, if and when the rates do come down and they come back to us, we can take a look at streamline refinancing where we don't collect income and asset documentation and there's no appraisal requirement. There's still
Nice.
closing costs, but those are all rolled in, and it's just a much smoother process to take advantage of those lower rates.
And I just think, how much less stressful is that going to be compared to battling it out at the open houses and the showings and the multiple offers
Right.
and all of that stuff? Because right now, we have, it feels a little bit better for buyers, at least in my experience, so.
And when I bought my first house in '04, my rate was at 6.25. I mean, that was norm. Nobody had heard of 3% rates before.
Right.
So I believe in the 22 years I've been doing loans that the time that we had those historic low rates, we may not necessarily see them come back down that low. I'm hoping kind of our new norm eventually when they do settle out is going to be in the high 4s, maybe low 5s. But you can always refinance. You can, and the sooner you get into your home, the longer you're in your home, so that when you do refinance, it is more beneficial to you than if you just buy and refinance very quickly after that. Sometimes there's not a lot of room to roll those closing costs in.
And again, another reason to build
Get
a
in.
relationship with
Yeah.
a local lender, get in, and you can comfortably refinance from the comfort of your home or your office
Absolutely.
and move on. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we should talk about before we sign off?
I mean, so going into some specialty loans, the VA home loan product, I've been doing that for a long time. I used to tell my veteran customers, if your lender doesn't know what an LES, an ETS, or a PCS is, they should not be doing a VA home loan. Those are your three
Amen.
basic terms that are very important in lending. Of course, your ETS is your date that you're supposed to get out of the service. And when your LES, your pay stub, says an exit date to get out of the service of 1 year or less, you cannot use your military income for that home loan. So it's very important.
What?
Yes.
So I need to know this information.
Yes.
Thank you for telling me that.
They need to either, if it is less than a year, they need to have the ability to re-enlist and a letter saying that they intend to re-enlist.
Okay.
Yes, because we want to make sure that we have the continuance of the income to solidify that pre-approval.
It's not just because you're mean.
Nope, not. I don't do anything because I'm mean. It's all investor requirements and it's all their fault.
It's because they want to make sure that they're backing up a solid person.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times it feels like, from a buyer's perspective, it's like, oh, we got to do this, or oh, we got to do that. But it's important to be with someone that is making sure that you do actually qualify and that
Yes.
you can do this, and that they're making a good investment in you.
And they understand what they're getting. And then when they get to the closing table, they don't feel so rushed, uninformed, and scared. We want them to feel confident, know what they're signing, and be ready to be a homeowner.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to know, or to end on that note. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and yeah, we'll invite you back again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I love working with you and your team.
Thank you.